Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. I hope that you're all well and like me at home. It's Daniel. If you don't know me, I'm Daniel Quansah. I'm one of the elders at Verdun Community Church. And I know that this is an unusual New Year. If I had my way, we'd all be together and I'd be greeting you and preaching to you in person, but that's not the case today. But I do believe that God has given me a message that is going to be like an antidote to what's going on all around us. People are sad, people are angry, people are fearful, and I, like probably some of you have felt some of those emotions as well. But I believe that God's giving us an opportunity here to do something to remedy that. To have growth come out of that, to have something actually positive come out of what seems to be an overwhelmingly negative situation. So with that, this is a time of year, because it's New Year's, where most of us, or some of us, have made resolutions before. I know you've probably had some that failed in the past, and if you have, don't feel bad about it. Most people, the overwhelming majority of people who make resolutions, fail at them. And there's a lot of different reasons why. I think at base, sometimes people just don't really care. They make them at New Year's because everybody's doing them. And one of the other reasons is that their New Year's goals aren't realistic. So what am I angling at? Well, I want us to make a resolution. I do. But why would I do that after saying that they fail? Well, I want us to make one that we care about. And I want us to make one that is realistic. And to do that, we're gonna reach into a word. So in Mark 10, chapter 10, verse 45, there's this verse: "For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many." This is purpose. Jesus' purpose was to come and to serve. Yes, to ransom, and thankfully, that's not what we're doing, or maybe we will, but hopefully most of us is just to serve throughout our life. But that gives us a sense of purpose. And if we tap into that, that should be something that we care about. In chapter 8, verse 35, he says, "For whoever wants to save his life will lose it. But whosoever loses his life because of me and because of the gospel will save it." So if we're giving our lives to this purpose, to the gospel, we're doing the right thing. So once again, it's something that we should care about. And if Jesus did it and we're supposed to be Christians, it should be realistic. So what is this resolution? How can we form it somehow? Well, the question that was bobbling around my head is, when Jesus went around, did he have a positive impact on people every day? Did Jesus take a day off? Was there a day where he said, "Nah, I don't feel like it today. I'm not in the mood"? From my reading and from my experience, from my feeling of the Holy Spirit in me, it's never led me to feel that I could take a day off. It's never led me to feel that, being rude or not trying to do the right thing is a good thing to do. So if Jesus, as the Son of God, was here, I believe he made an impact on people daily. So that's exactly what I want our resolution to be. I want us to make a positive impact on someone, at least one person every day, for Christ. Now, what does that look like exactly? There's a couple different forms it can take, but before we even get to what forms it can take, I want to, talk to those who might be doubting, talk to those who might, be creeping up with excuses. Well, one of the things that people might use as an excuse is that there are days where you just don't feel like it. Probably like now. We're in a situation where you're stuck at home. You have all these other things you'd rather do. I've got my kids here with me and my wonderful wife, but they're energetic and they need things to do. And I would much rather have had people around to entertain them at times as well. But that's not an excuse. Jesus' circumstances were way worse than ours in many ways. And he went through really hard lows in terms of his circumstances, but he didn't take them off. He didn't take a day off. One of them that I think of is when he was apart from the disciples. They were supposed to be, going around with his gospel, and part of that would be exorcising demons from people. And he came back to his disciples in chapter 19 of Mark, in verse 14, and the disciples had failed to exorcise a demon from a boy. And some of the local leaders were arguing with them. The crowd was around, and Jesus came in and he was exasperated. He was upset with what was going on at these people's unbelief. In my estimation, he was probably not feeling it at that moment. But you know what he did? He went ahead and he exorcised the demon from the boy and released him. So no matter what we're feeling, it's not an excuse to not make an impact for someone. The other thing is that some people feel shy, whether it's someone that they're close to or not close to. Maybe you're better when the person is more anonymous than you, and the people that you're closer to, your friends, your family, your colleagues, you rather not go into territories where you can be vulnerable. Well, that excuse is out the window, because Jesus impacted the disciples, the apostles, his family that were close to him, and all these crowds of people that he probably met only once in his lifetime. And the other thing is, when we think of positively impacting people, the first thing that came to my mind is that this has to be something that's always nice. You're always going to make people feel good in the moment. The reality of making a positive impact is it isn't always a nice feeling. There are some positive impacts that come through a tough time or something that might not be easy to hear or do, but ultimately shows or gives the opportunity for growth. So what ways should we be looking to positively impact people in the new year? Well, I have two specific things I want us to try to do. Actually, not try to do, to do. The first one is to care. Now, when we look in the Word, what we see with Jesus as he went from city to city, or village to village, was him healing people. Now, I still believe in healing. I've seen it in people's lives, and I'm a believer in it, of course. But I will pray for people and hope, and hopefully I increase my faith and I'm more successful in healing people. But I know that caring is something right now I can do regardless if I can always heal. So to care, I can, yes, heal, or I can uplift, I can support, I can bring up good in people. And there's a story specifically from Jesus that makes me think that this is something that we can all do. In chapter 1, verse 40, it says, "Now a leper came to him and fell to his knees, asking for help. 'If you are willing, you can make me clean,' he said. Moved with indignation, Jesus stretched out his hand and touched him, saying, 'I am willing, be clean.' The leprosy left him at once, and he was clean." So to me, what this shows is that caring isn't always about ability. Yes, in Jesus' case, he was able to heal him. He healed the leper, the man got up, and it's a beautiful story. But when we just look at the healing part, we lose the part that we can play in this. What can we do? The leper asked Jesus if he was willing, to which Jesus said yes, he was. So to care for others, we have to ask that question of ourselves. Are we willing? Because it's not if we're able. We can always care, but are we willing to care? And if our answer to that is always yes, despite whatever circumstances we're in, then we're going to succeed at making an impact for people. Whether it's as extreme as this, we can always provide care. We can alleviate pressure or pain, and we can share burdens, or sometimes we can remove them. We live in a world right now where people have all sorts of concerns or problems. Some are physical, some are mental, some are emotional, and there are definitely spiritual needs. And all of us are equipped in different ways. So in the situations that we find ourselves in, we can help people in those different ways. The other thing is, we can uplift people. When we look at Jesus, one of the things that I find so inspirational about him is how he cared for those that he was in close proximity with, even if sometimes it was in harsh ways. So if we look in chapter 6 at verse 7, it starts a point where he is sending out his disciples. As he sends them out, he gives them a task to do. Now, this doesn't necessarily seem uplifting, but they had been following him and only following him. They'd been doing what he does or watching what he does. But now he was giving them some independence. He was giving them some responsibility To do that, he had to build them up to this point. Now, when we want to uplift people, we can always point out things that they do well. We can encourage them in ways that they can grow. We can send people out in our own ways, people that we feel have a gift that they're not really using. So to uplift someone, find something in them that you know that they can do or that they're doing well, compliment them on it truthfully, and implore them to do more. Implore them to go maybe a little bit further than they're comfortable doing, to be a little bit more vulnerable, but uplift them into something that they can do. And we see that Jesus does that. And here, this is in two different stories. The leper was a first-time person Jesus has met, and he was willing to care for him. Where the disciples were people he was with daily, and he was still caring for them. So close or far, we can always care. The other thing I think that we can do that goes back to what I was saying earlier about not everything is necessarily nice is deliver truth. Truth is something that's not always easy to hear, especially if it's something that we might be doing wrong. In chapter 8, verse 3, Peter is not in agreement with what Jesus is saying about what's about to happen, his plans, or what God has planned for Jesus' life. And he rebukes Christ. He tells him, no, Lord, you shouldn't be doing this. No, Jesus, you shouldn't be doing this. And Jesus tells him, get behind me, Satan. Imagine Peter, what he felt in that moment. He probably felt horribly right then. And Jesus' technique in this moment. He knows who he's speaking to. This is someone he's close to. He knows what Peter will be able to do ultimately after. But in this moment, he had to let Peter know that what he was thinking and what he was doing was not right. He had to meet him with truth. And this actually had a tremendously positive impact for Peter, because he realized that even Jesus wouldn't get to do everything he wanted, and Jesus would have to do things that he didn't necessarily want to do. So Peter himself would have to learn to change that his will was not always the priority. It was the will of God. So this is an instance where truth in the moment might hurt, but ultimately had a great impact. Jesus had another moment like this too. He had many, actually. But one of them that always sticks out to me is when he's in the temple in chapter 11, he cleanses it. We've talked about this passage many times in all of the Gospels. He walks in and he overturns the tables from the sellers of the doves and the people exchanging money. And he basically tells them that all they're doing is wrong, that the temple shouldn't be this way. And we see this righteous anger that he has. And that's one of the things that we usually focus on. But what it says as he's preaching to them, as he's telling them that they're wrong, that people were in awe of his authority. The people that saw that, whether they were participants in what was wrong or not, that had an impact on them. They saw what Jesus stood for. They saw the truth that he was trying to instill in these people, and it had an impact on them beyond that day. Even if in the moment it seemed negative, his truth had a positive impact on them. So we can deliver truth to people. So often I think we sit on truths because we're worried about how the receiver will take it in. We don't want to, rock the boat. We don't want to maybe hurt someone. Yes, I think that we have to have grace in how we do this. I believe that we should ask the Holy Spirit to be with us, to find the right words and the right timing. Truth is not always just to be unleashed. And just because you're saying truth doesn't mean it's always the right time to say it. But I don't believe that we should sit on truths always. I think that there are times where the Holy Spirit will inspire us to deliver them. And the closer we are with him, the easier that becomes, and the more of a positive impact we make. And these impacts aren't just for fellow Christians. These aren't always, deep, hard truths about the Bible or about lifestyle necessarily within the church. It's our colleagues, our friends, it's the people that we see around. And it's not always about correcting them. It's sometimes they might be set in ways or thinking things that are harmful to them, and they need a little bit of truth. So we need to be bold and wise about how we deliver truth to people to deliver that very important positive impact for Christ. In the end, I'm left with this parable that I read while I was reading through Mark in preparation for today. It's the parable of the sowers. And we know this one. Some fall on the road, some fall near the thorns, and some fall on good soil. And Jesus later explains to the disciples that these are the different people and our message to them, how it's received. Some will fall away for all different sorts of reasons. They'll be pulled by their selfishness, pulled by things of the world, pulled by money, whatever it may be. So all these positive impacts that we're trying to make, they might fall on the road. They might fall amongst the thorns, but they also might fall on good soil. We don't get to discern that. Sometimes we'll never know whether the impact that we made has a long-term impact, whether it turns someone to Christ or changes their journey for the better. But all I know is that we're called to do this. We're called to make these impacts, and hopefully they will bear fruit. I believe they will. So this new year, let's focus outwardly instead of inwardly. More than ever, right now after Christmas, we know the gift that we've received, all the joy that we hopefully are experiencing. And beyond the circumstances of the moment, what's going on in our world and our society, specifically here in Quebec, I know can be overwhelming. But if we make the choice to believe the mission that God has given us, to impact others, to go and serve those who are in need, I believe that this new year can still be a fantastic one, and will be a fantastic one if we choose to make positive impacts for Christ for those around us. So God bless you. I hope you feel inspired in this new year, and I hope that you find ways, all ingenious ways, to impact those around you. I love you, and God bless you.